My ex-friend messaged me, questioning why I never loved her back, but she used me as a rebound more aggressively than a basketball in the NBA Finals. She was only interested when things weren't working out with someone else. To protect the privacy of the people involved, I'm using a throwaway account for this post. The situation I'm about to explain is unique enough that the person involved might easily figure out that it's about them, and I don't want them to trace it back to my main account. So, I'm keeping this anonymous for now. I'm a 35-year-old married man, and my wife is 32. We've been together for 8 years, married for 4. We have 2 children and are expecting our 3rd. My wife and I were out shopping in our hometown when we ran into my ex-friend, who is 34. She was with her parents and children. This woman moved out of state over 10 years ago, and I haven't had any contact with her since then, except for the occasional happy birthday messages on Facebook. She's married with 2 kids of her own now, and I hadn't seen her since she moved away. My father-in-law and her father have stayed in touch over the years. Both are retired military, and they meet occasionally for breakfast with other retired military friends. It was no surprise to me when my ex-friend's dad congratulated us on our pregnancy when we ran into them. He must have heard the news from my father-in-law. I noticed that my ex-friend looked at my wife's belly, and after that, she seemed to act distant, whereas she had been friendly at the beginning of the encounter. We exchanged pleasantries and said our goodbyes, and my wife and I continued with our shopping. After we were done shopping, I checked my phone and noticed a Facebook message from my ex-friend. The message read, "It was good to see you again." And I replied, "You too. The family looks great." She responded, "Yours too. Would you want to grab coffee and catch up? I'm in town for a couple of days." I told her that we were pretty busy, but I'd love to if the schedule allowed. She seemed to understand, but then asked if she could ask me a question. What followed was a message I wasn't expecting. She asked, "Was I just not your type?" Confused, I asked, "What do you mean?" She then explained, "I'm asking what I did wrong. I pursued you for years, and we were inseparable. You never gave us a real chance. I loved you. Our families loved us, and our friends loved us together. You just never committed fully. You wouldn't even sleep with me, and I need to know why. Was I not good enough? Couldn't you see yourself marrying me and having a family together?" I didn't respond immediately to her message. It caught me off guard, and I wasn't sure how to process it. Instead, I showed the message to my wife. She knows about this ex-friend and the reasons why our relationship never progressed. The thing is, seeing her again stirred up a lot of old memories, and I'm unsure how to approach it. My wife wants me to be honest with her, but I'm conflicted because I'm worried that being fully honest will come across as hurtful. I'm trying to figure out how to approach this situation, and I'd really appreciate any advice. To give some background, my ex-friend and I met through mutual friends in high school. I was very interested in her, but she was dating someone at the time. After some time, she ended up asking me out, and we began dating. However, we never had the "what are we" conversation, so I never saw her as my girlfriend. I always referred to her as a friend. One night, while we were driving, I overheard a phone call she took from her ex-boyfriend. I put ex-boyfriend in quotes because I didn't know they were still together at the time. She didn't have the phone on speaker, but I could still hear parts of the conversation. She told him she couldn't talk right now, and when he asked who she was with, she didn't tell him. Later, he messaged me on Facebook, asking if I knew they were still together. I apologized to him and told him I didn't, but I would cut things off. I called her, and she started crying. She admitted that she didn't have the courage to tell me they were still together, but she really liked me and was planning to break up with him. I ended things with her anyway. Months later, she reached out to me again. We went through the same pattern. She would want to be with me, but there was always another guy involved. I would catch glimpses of her social media, and I'd see that she had just broken up with someone. This continued throughout college and even into our early 20s. It was always the same. We'd reconnect, things would get serious, and then I'd see on social media that she had just ended things with someone else. It was as though she was always in the process of moving on from someone else when we started getting close again. The situation reached a breaking point when we went on a weekend trip to the mountains together. It was her idea. But when we got there, I found out that she had just been there with her ex a month earlier. It was always like this. Every time we started getting close, she would have just gotten out of a relationship, and I'd start to feel like I was just a rebound. My friends even suggested that I should just enjoy the moments when she came to me and not look for something more. But I couldn't bring myself to do that. I wanted something real with her, but it always felt like I was second choice. The worst part was that both our families really liked us together. My parents would occasionally ask about her, making it clear that they thought we were a good match. My now father-in-law even told me once that my ex-friend's dad had mentioned that he thought I'd one day be his son-in-law. It all felt so complicated, and it wasn't until later that I realized I had been holding myself back from committing to her because I felt like I was just a backup plan for her. It was painful, but I finally had distanced myself. Eventually, I met my wife, and she met her husband, and both of us moved on. We didn't have much contact with each other for a long time, and everything was fine. That is, until the other day when I received the message from her. It's been a couple of days, and I still haven't responded. I thought about just lying to her or not responding at all, but my wife insists that I should be completely honest with her. I've been going back and forth about whether I should respond or not. Part of me wants to be honest about why things didn't work out between us, but I don't want to hurt her feelings either. I've decided to get some outside opinions before making a decision, so I'm reaching out to Reddit for advice. After reading some of the responses, I realized that many of you think she's doing the same thing she always did with me, testing the waters to see if I'd be willing to fall back into the same pattern. Some people even said that her marriage might be crumbling and she's trying to rekindle what we had. If that's the case, I don't want to engage in that cycle again. My wife and I are happy, and I don't want to jeopardize that. Update. After reading through all of the responses, I decided not to respond to her. It had been 5 days by the time I processed everything, and I realized it wasn't worth revisiting. My wife was supportive of my decision and suggested that I block her if she messages me again. Over the weekend, we had a couple of Easter egg hunts with family. I wasn't surprised to see non-family members there, but I was shocked when I saw Anna's parents and her kids. After the egg hunt, Anna's dad came over to chat with me. He casually mentioned that Anna and her husband were having some troubles and needed time alone to sort things out. He didn't go into details, but I wasn't surprised by that. I guess this situation is just another chapter in the long history of complicated relationships with Anna. For now, I think this should conclude the story. If anything else happens, I'll let you know. Thanks again for the advice.